Hey everybody, I'm Jimmy, the Bearded Biker, and today we're going to be doing a first impression on the BMW XR 1000. What's that? Glad you asked. Stick around and find out.
Whether coming or going, Moto Nation, USA, always on the road.
Okay, we're going to be doing a first impression. What is a first impression? Well, I think we all understand what a first impression is. We try to make those whenever we meet people for the first time. It sticks with people for a long time. First impressions aren't a full review because I haven't owned the bike for a length of time. Matter of fact, I've never owned the bike. I've just been able to ride one for several hours. I rode one today for about an hour, and I've ridden my buddy Darin's bike for a couple of hours. So I have a couple of hours of familiarity with this bike, so I can't do a full review. But I can do a first impression. And that's what gets people to buy bikes. Come in, test ride the bike. Did you like it? Yes. Did you like it? No. So some of the things I did like, some of the things I didn't. What was that first impression? Overall, it was pretty good. My first impression of the bike is pretty good. There are some great things about the bike. Let me see. The first thing I liked about the bike, on this particular bike, was the color. Is that a product of the bike? What do I mean by product of the bike? What was the first thing I liked about this bike? First thing I liked about this bike was the color. It was Harley Davidson black. Oh, excuse me. It was just a black bike. And I like that. I like the basic black bike. That was nice. The only thing that was visually distracting about the whole thing was it's got bronze fork tubes. I wish those were blacked out. And if it was my bike, I would black them out at some point. So I come up on the bike. I'm going to be doing a walk around. The video was, not the video. I'm going to be doing a walk around with the bike. You're going to see some of that video, and I'm going to be talking about it. The audio was corrupted, so I don't think I had my microphone plugged in all the way, and so I'm going to have to voice over. But I do a walk around on the bike. As I walk around on the bike, there's a couple of things I like and a couple of things I don't. One thing that I don't like is the asymmetrical design of the bike. I like a very symmetrical design. What's on the left, I want to match on the right. So people have symmetrical hands, or most people, that's the way I want my bike. The BMW XR 1000 is not that bike. So the headlights, it looks, one headlight shines, the other one is off. When you turn the high beam, the other one turns on. So it looks like when it gets behind you, now one eye is open and one eye is closed if it's on low beam. That's kind of what it looks like. On the other side, that's only if it's behind you. That's only if it's behind you. Now on the other side of the bike, when you're sitting on it, it's a fairly comfortable sitting position. It's not my preferred sitting position because the handlebars are a little too low for me. If it was my bike, I could adjust that. I get that. My Road Glide, the handlebars were too low for me, and I raised them up. I would do the same thing with this bike. So my feet on the Road Glide sit out in front of me and down below. On this bike, they're underneath me, so it's a different riding position. It's not one that I'm really accustomed to, but I think I could grow accustomed to it if I rode the bike on a more frequent basis. It has the same seating position, or a very similar seating position to the Pan America. And I'm becoming more comfortable on that. Still not my favorite riding position yet, but I'm becoming adapted to it slowly. So it's a fairly comfortable seating position. As I said, the pegs on it are much more comfortable than the Pan America pegs because they're a little larger. So I like that. Pan America's got some little mini pegs down there. These are much bigger. One thing I absolutely hate about the bike, just I despise, was the kickstand. To me, is in the wrong spot. Where the tab is, where you put your left heel down to push your kickstand down, or your toe, whichever you're going to catch the little tab with to put the kickstand down, is right between the toe shifter and the reel and the peg. So I have clumsy feet maybe. I don't know. I'm just not good enough. I don't like it having to worry about hitting the shifter and having the bike do a little jump start or whatever. That's on my mind. And that's distracting. I don't like that. They should have put the tab out front or back behind, just any other spot The kickstand really bugged me. Other than that, the bike looked good. It was all black. It had some black panniers on it, and I really liked the square looking pannier look to the whole bike. So when I sit in it and I'm looking at the controls on the bike, the controls are functional, but really I've become maybe spoiled or accustomed to a TFT, a screen that you can touch or move. This bike didn't have any of that. It had, the RPM gauges and a little screen to the right where it displays some information about the bike. But there's no really way to Bluetooth to your phone or to a headset or control things. And I like that functionality now. The bike didn't have that kind of functionality. So I wasn't impressed by the whole speedometer, tachometer setup. In addition to it not being symmetrical, there was the lack of functionality there for me. As far as the bike rides, it's got different modes. It's got a rain mode, it's got a dynamic and a dynamic pro, which will adjust the suspension and the throttle progressivity. The bike is very responsive in in every mode it's very responsive. Almost too responsive for me because I'm not accustomed to the bike. So there was a couple of times in corners where I gave it gas and the back end broke loose. That made me wonder, did it have even traction control? I don't know. I tried to stop and hold the lever on a hill. It did not have hill assist. So I've become accustomed to all the new technology in these bikes. And this bike didn't have that technology, or it wasn't evident to me. As I said, this is a first impression. So I didn't test all the functions of the bikes because I don't even know about all the functions of the bike. Although, what it did do really well was it handles really well. I'm able to go through corners nicely. It's very nimble and it's very quick. So whenever one thing I did notice about the quickness too, if you want the power, it's just going to accelerate like another decent accelerating motorcycle unless you hit it in the power band. If you're from the dirt bikes of old, this bike has definitely got what is a power band, or where it accelerates well. Above 6 to 7,000 RPMs to about 9 to 10, maybe 11,000 RPMs, the bike really hammers hard. Whenever you're down into 4 to 5,000 RPM range and you give it gas, it's just going to slowly accelerate until it hits that 6, 7,000, 8,000 RPMs, and then it really kicks in. It's like the power band RPMs at. As I became familiar with the bike, I started giving a little more RPMs. The engine sound is a bit distracting because I'm not accustomed to it. That would quickly go away if I owned the bike and was listening for that sort of thing all the time. I'd be listening to music in my headset most of the time. That lack of functionality was one of the things that I didn't care for. You're going to have to put your phone on attach it somehow, and you'll have to take your hand off in order to punch buttons. Well, I know from previous experience from my Heritage Softail Classic that I had a phone mounted up there and I did the same sort of thing, and people always complained that I became erratic in my riding, my speed goes control. So if you're riding with somebody, you're going to start doing the accordion. As you reach up and you control your phone, you'll lose speed. You're not even aware of it. You'll lose speed, and then you gain speed, you lose speed, you gain speed. Every time you reach and touch that phone, your hands come off the controls, you're doing the accordion. Slow and speed up, slow and speed up. That same sort of thing is going to happen on this bike because you're not able to control the functionality like a Bluetooth phone with the controls like I'm accustomed to. One of the things that I like about my Road Glide, one of the things I like about the Pan America, and I think that most all new bikes should have that functionality, so you can Bluetooth your phone, everything's connected, and you can control it right from the handlebars without lifting your hands from the handlebars, so you don't speed up, slow down, that sort of thing. So we were talking about the comfort of the bike. Bike is comfortable. and I'm becoming more accustomed to that riding position. Uh, as you set the different modes, the Dynamic Pro suspension is the hardest. When you go into dynamic mode, the suspension becomes a little bit softer and so forth. So if you're not wanting to get the most performance out of the bike, go ahead and do yourself a favor and set it for dynamic. Becomes the suspension will become softer, and you'll save a little wear and tear on your body. So that's pretty nice. Very quick. The only bikes that I think that might outrun this bike are your dedicated sport bikes. So if you like that performance, when you hammer that throttle and open it up, this bike is going to have it. And this bike's going to be a lot more comfortable than those sport bikes, because you're sitting in an upright position instead of that lean forward. I'm a little too short on this bike, or I would need it lowered. It doesn't become a problem for me anymore because I've become accustomed to it. But as you stop, I'm 5'10", and if I stop and put my feet down, they don't touch flat-footed. I have to either stand on my tippy toes or leave one foot on the peg and then just slightly lean over to a little bit, and the other foot, the one that's not on the peg, will be flat-footed on the ground. That's not really a problem for me. I've ridden that way for a while, so that's kind of very easy for me to do. Wasn't an issue. But if it is an issue for somebody, and the only time I can think of that it might be an issue, and if you're aware of it, it could never be the issue, is if you park on some gravel and you're trying to back up on gravel. So you need your whole foot on the ground rather than just one foot or your tippy toes, because gravel can slide underneath your feet, and then of course you might drop your bike, and nobody wants to drop their bike. So that's the only kind I can think that might be an issue. In addition to that, maybe they designed the bike with a taller person in mind, because I have to lean forward just a tiny bit to get to the handlebars. Again, I would remedy that with bringing the bars up and back a little bit, like I did on my Road Glide, like I plan to do on the Pan America. Suffers from the same issue. I lean forward just a little bit, so there's a little extra pressure right there on my hands, and with an extended ride, that's going to be an issue. The bike has a little bit of a vibration in the handlebars and some in the foot pegs. I didn't really notice it in the foot pegs too much. I did notice it after about 30 to 45 minutes, particularly in my right hand. Maybe it's more sensitive than the left, but nevertheless, that's the throttle hand, so I noticed a little bit of vibration. I know that there's some aftermarket solutions where they put some weights down there in the end and it eliminates the vibrations. That would be a good thing, and something I would definitely do if I own the bike. So overall, very favorable first impression. This bike would get me into some trouble. I've already had a couple of tickets on the Pan America, as we've seen. This bike will outperform the Pan America, definitely outrun it, and so I would get myself even into some more trouble on this bike than I have on the Pan America. Better take that into account, because it's easy to speed. So as this video is playing, we've seen some of the clips. We're talking about a few of the things. A lot of the things that I talked about right now are the things that I was talking about. As I said, the audio, I think my microphone came unplugged, so I'm just kind of talking about it. And I'll put this up in the corner. As you can see, some of the riding around. Rode it through some traffic, took it some current corners, some high speed corners or higher speed corners. And if you have any comments about the bike, questions about the bike, please comment in the section down below. I'll be happy to answer them. And if I don't know the answer, I'll ask my buddy Darin over at Texas Small Town Rides. He's owned 3 of these bikes and he is very knowledgeable about them, and I think he would recommend this bike to just about anybody. And I would recommend it to those who want the performance out of the bike, definitely. If they're looking for more, how should I put it? If they're looking for more of the creature comforts, the connectivity of different issues, wanting to control some stuff, I maybe look at something different. But for performance, this bike has it all, definitely. I'm Jimmy, Bearded Biker, and I hope to see you on the road.